taking my freedom, putting it in my car. Wherever I choose to go, it won't take me far. I'm living my life like it's golden, 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 living my life like it's golden.
G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to discuss why beginners should use RPE in their training. So RPE stands for rate of perceived exertion. It's a numerical system of rating out of 10 that's used to gauge how hard you're working. A 10 would mean you have 0 reps left in the tank, a 9 would mean you have 1 rep left in the tank, and so on. If you are unfamiliar with this topic, I definitely recommend checking out our podcast, YouTube, and blogs done in the past. We've got a lot of information available kind of detailing how it works and why it's important. So when it comes to RPE training, there are a lot of misconceptions out there. And no doubt the biggest misconception that there is that it is too hard for beginner lifters. There's this idea that it's too complex, they can't be trusted with kind of picking their own loads, and as a result, they should stick to prescribed loads, and that RPE is a tool that should be saved for more advanced lifters. Now, we definitely think that's not the case. And I think a really easy way to explain this is to think back when we all started training. So when you enter the gym, you generally don't have any type of program to follow. You kind of just come in, pick an exercise, start banging out reps. If it doesn't feel that hard, you go up. If it feels too hard, you pull back a bit. And this really is how simple RPE training is. It's just a way of managing how hard we're working based on our ability to perform on the given day. As a bit of example, I remember back in my first year of training, I was doing walking lunges and I was trying to keep up with my training partner who was a bit more advanced than me. I was smashing them out, trying to keep up with his dumbbells, and after that session, I was ruined. I was sore for a week. I was pushing too hard. So I learned, probably don't push that hard next time. And I learned to moderate my intensity a bit and find that sweet spot where I can get quality work in without working too hard. And I'm sure this is an experience we've all gone through, whether it's recently or back when we first started training. We've all worked too hard and realized that we should probably pull back a bit. We've all had sessions where we realized, we were probably just kind of undershooting a bit there. We didn't put out as much effort as we could have. And this is all it takes in order to train with RPE. For some reason down the track, people start getting encouraged. They start following a program online and they start to think that they need to have prescribed loads. They need to come into the gym and know exactly what load they have to hit. But this really isn't the case. The program you follow should be flexible. It should have the ability to vary day to day. There are many factors that kind of contribute towards your performance. And as a result, the plan you have shouldn't be set in stone. You should be able to take advantage of days where you feel great, or know that on certain days, if it's just not the day to be pushing it, you should be able to pull back. I often find myself explaining to new clients how the program we write them really isn't the be all and end all of the service that we offer. Like, yeah, we like to think we offer better programs than most, but that's really not what you're getting out of the coaching service. And I can't help to think that the people who really push prescribed loads and think that they need to be in control of their clients' loads completely kind of hang their hat on their ability to write programs, and we really don't. Like, as I said, we like to think we write pretty good programs, but that's not really where our value as a coach lies. When people are new to the gym, and even after they've been training for a while, we don't really need specific volume or intensity kind of prescriptions. There's many ways that are going to work. Sometimes adding some sets may be a good idea, adding a bit more weight. There's no kind of like really set in stone plan. I can't look at a lifter and know exactly how much they need. In reality, they probably know how much they're able to take than I do. They kind of know their body a bit better. They know what hard feels like for them. They know the factors that are going on in their life that impacts how hard they can train. So to think that I, as the coach, will know exactly what they need, I think is a bit misguided. So just as a bit of a summary of that point, think back to when you started first training. You didn't have a really set plan, but you were able to make progress and you made a lot of progress. And don't think that you don't have the ability to make those decisions for yourself. If you followed a program that's kind of taken that ability away from you, that's a bit understandable, but don't think you don't have that skill. We all have the ability, more so than any coach would, to know how hard we need to train on a particular day. So the initial difficulty that people often experience when they start using RPE in their training can lead some people to think that it's a method that shouldn't be used for beginners and think that it's something that should be saved for more advanced trainees. To explain why we don't think this is the case, I'm going to use the example of squatting. And the key part of this point I'm making is that RPE is a skill, and just like any other skill, it needs to be developed. So when someone first squats, when they first come into the gym, when we've got a new client, they don't really know what they're doing. Their reps aren't going to be consistent. They're kind of thinking a lot what they're doing. They're just kind of getting it wrong. So what do? We slow them down. We give them a few cues to work on. We set parameters in their program to make sure we set them up for success. And along the ways, they're going to make some mistakes, but that's okay. Like, we don't need them to get it right straight away. Over time, they build a bit more consistency, they build a bit more confidence, they know what they're doing. They don't need us to hold their hand as much, and they build a bit more autonomy, and they are kind of free to do things on their own. They learn it as they go along. Now, RPE training is no different to this. If someone's never used it before, yeah, they're probably gonna make some mistakes at the start. They're gonna either train not hard enough or push a bit too hard and overshoot and just smash themselves. So what do? We rewrite the program in a way that tries to set them up for success. We keep things a bit easier so that the risk of them overshooting isn't too great. And if it does happen, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. Gradually over time, they've got a bit more autonomy. They're developing the skill and they know how to make good decisions for themselves. It's really no different. Squatting is a skill. RPE training is a skill. Straight away, you're probably not going to be great at it, but over time, with a good coach, with a good system, you'll be able to develop the skill. And something I really want to kind of hone in is that when we're learning to squat, making mistakes is important. Making mistakes in a kind of controlled environment with a coach to give us feedback is what we really need to learn. We don't know how to improve if we don't actually try. The same applies with RPE. Making mistakes is part of the process, and making mistakes is going to be a part of RPE training forever, just like making mistakes with squats is always going to be a part of squatting. Over time, as we make our mistakes, that gives us a chance to reflect, learn, and then come back better in the future. Another point that I think is really important is just as the best squatters don't always get it right, the best trainees, the most elite lifters won't always pick the right loads, and that's okay. But what really matters is that the best coaches won't always prescribe the right loads. So there's really no solution in this instance. Training doesn't have to be perfect, and it never will be. However, developing that self-awareness, developing the skill of managing your own training is critical over the long term. And the fact that we may make mistakes with it doesn't matter, because it really pays off dividends in the long term. So the final point we're going to make is that some personalities just need a bit more coaching when it comes to starting to use RPE training. So the people that tend to struggle the most with RPE initially are those who have a real emotional attachment to the weight on the bar. They always want to see that weight going up. They really have specific numbers in mind, and so they kind of throw away the RPE and just load what they want to be on the bar. This doesn't mean RPE is not for them. It just means they need a bit of education. Making smart training decisions is a critical part of your progress as you continue to get stronger and stronger. RPE requires objective decision making, but it also forces you to get better at being objective, regardless of how emotional you are about your training. So I don't think the answer for someone who is too emotional is to not have their loads, to not pick loads for themselves. The reality is these people need that education. They need RPE to learn what it takes to actually make progress. Of course, for them, it's going to be a bit challenging. It's going to be a bit of a process, but if they truly care about their training, if they truly want to make progress, they don't mind a challenge. That's what they're here for. They're here to learn, they're here to get better, and they understand that if they can develop this skill, if they're taught properly, it's going to pay off in the long term. I think the key difference between us and a lot of people is that some people would make you believe that it's big percentages of lifters who just aren't suited to RPE, that are really emotionally driven by their training. On the other hand, for us, we'd think it's a bit more rare than that. We'd see from the hundreds of lifters that have come through our system that it is very, very rare. We're talking about every once in a while someone who really, really struggles with that emotional decision making to the point where they need their hand held quite a bit when it comes to RPE training. For these people, we probably use a bit of a hybrid approach. So it might look something like top set of squats, 1 rep at RPE 7 to 8, and we're going to give them a ballpark of say 140 to 150 kilos. This allows them to make decisions and try to rate their RPE, but it gives them a kind of rough idea so they don't make ultimately a terrible decision. Over time, we look to wean this method out as they kind of build a bit more self-awareness, get better at making objective decisions, and ultimately are improving as a lifter. So I think the key point with this final point we've made is that just because some people will struggle with using RPE, just because some people become a bit too emotional, it doesn't mean we should abandon this method altogether. What it actually means is this method serves to help those people and serves to give them a learning experience that is critical for their development as a lifter. So in summary, the 3 key reasons why beginners should use RPE in their training. Number one, we all started our training with RPE. This is the way most people start when they enter the gym, so there's no reason to think that it's unreasonable for beginners to be able to use RPE in their training. Point number two, RPE is a skill and it needs to be developed. If people struggle to use it at first, that's okay. It's just going to take a bit of time and a bit of coaching and feedback in order for them to develop this skill, just like any other skill. And point number three, some people will just struggle a bit more than others. Depending on people's personality types, they may take a bit longer to develop the skill of RPE training. However, that doesn't mean we should throw the baby out with the bathwater just because a few people struggle. If you've enjoyed this content, chuck us a like, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and chuck us a comment down below. I noticed there's a few key OGs who always leave comments on our videos, so we see you, we appreciate you, keep up the love. Other than that, happy lifting and more good stuff coming soon.